Hi everybody, my name is Alan. On behalf of the crew, I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Bridging Heaven and Earth. You know, we start the show and I usually talk about, you know, what's been going on and what I thought of when I drove over here, or what, you know, we've been hearing from around the world. And, you know, and basically we were talking earlier today, and I was actually talking to my brother who lives in New York City. And we were talking about that, you know, we do this show and we have guests from all over the world, and that basically the root of every show is the same. It's the same about how we can connect, how we're made to connect, how we are, in a sense, that connection to the love. That, you know, bridging heaven and earth from the first show to this show, it's been a lot of shows, probably close to 165, 170 now. And it's always about putting out a vibration of love, putting out a vibration of the connectedness between us all. So much of what goes on in the world, we can see all the, what seem like the differences, all the races, the colors, the countries, the ages, the sexual preferences, differences, it seems. And yet when someone experiences the truth, God, love, that infinite, that transcendental quality, they realize that in essence we are all that same love. And the rest of it is the difference between, you know, what color coat you're wearing and what height you are. It's just so minute in comparison, in relationship to that infinite love. And that's really what we want to experience here, what we want to know. And again, we have a show that's dedicated to the oneness, dedicated to a recognition of that truth. We have a guest with us his name is Matt Guest, and he's a spiritual teacher, he's a healer, he's the author of an extraordinary book, The Face of Power, which talks about his personal experiences with out-of-body experiences, with lucid dreaming. And each one of those expands his awareness, expands his openness to that one. And what prevents us, in a way, from knowing that one? It's really our limitation on the experience of the infinite. And we separate things out that, well, I had this experience when I'm sleeping, I had this experience when I was this or that, and it's all part of the makeup of who we are. And so when we dream in our dreaming body and all these things that maybe some of us aren't familiar with so much, but Matt, his whole life, has had these experiences that have awakened him and opened him. And we're just honored to have him here with us. It's an extraordinary book, The Face of Power. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. And then we have two wonderful videos from Guy Monroe, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and No Pride at All. Just two beautiful, beautiful videos. So again, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us on the set here with Matt and these videos, and for you, whenever you watch the show, to go another step, another level into that love, into that openness, into that faith, into that surrender, into that experience of God, of truth. So as we normally do, join me in a short meditation, and then we'll start with Somewhere Over the Rainbow video, and then Matt's going to be with us, and it should be an extraordinary hour for us all. So please join me in a short meditation. Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to start the show with the first music video from Guy Monroe, Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
and the dreams that you dream of once in a lullaby. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true. Someday you'll wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like lemon drops high above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, bluebirds fly, and the dream that you dare to, oh why can't well, I see trees of green and red roses too. I'll watch them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Well, I see skies of blue and I see clouds of white and the brightness of day. I like the dark and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by, as if friends shaking hands saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Someday you'll wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops high above the chimney top. That's where you'll find me. Oh, somewhere over the rainbow, way up high, and the dream that you dare to, oh why can't
Hi, welcome. So we're on the set with Matt. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks, Alan, for having me here.
Yeah, it's great. So, I mean, you've had a lot of these, what most people would call unusual experiences, out-of-body, lucid dreaming experience from the time you were a little boy, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I have. Yeah.
Well, go with it. Why don't you talk about when did it start? When you were 2 years old, 5 years old, that you remember?
Well, the memories, yeah, they go it's back far further than I can remember, I'm sure. You know, I remember hovering on the ceiling when I was a little boy. I remember trying to figure out what this strange object was in front of my face. Had kind of an amber glow, and it kind of morphed, if you will. Kind of went like this. I realized finally that that was the light on the ceiling of my house, there in the hallway. But I didn't realize that till much later, because as a young boy, I had no idea what was going on. You know, as a young boy, my family never discussed these things. They were just things that we had no idea what they meant, what they were.
Were you treated as weird? Was it like
no.
frowned upon? No, it was just matter of fact?
It was so outside of our paradigm, if you will, our realm of consciousness, that it was just a dream. It wasn't until many, many years later that I even understood that this had some kind of meaning, that it could be utilized as a
So, and this
function.
happened all the time, or was it random, or
it was,
an odd occurrence?
It was pretty even there. But, you know, a lot of factors play into lucid dreaming and out-of-body experience as to whether or not they would occur every night or not, but it occurred quite frequently, yes.
So why don't you describe, you know, the process that took you through it, that you were having them, and then when did they become like a tool for you to use to experience more consciousness, more love, more openness?
Yeah, it was probably almost 30 years before I finally understood what was going on. And it was through my, you know, various readings and studies that I finally understood what a lucid dream was, or what an out-of-body
experience was. Did you read the
was.
Carlos Castaneda books?
Oh,
was
yes.
Was that where it came?
That was one of the main focal points, yes. And then there was also a guy named Court that I met, who also helped me to understand these things. There were the Seth books, the Jane Roberts books. All these things I didn't discover until my mid to late 20s. And then eventually I finally realized that the things that had happened to me previously had been these experiences, and then I started to practice that, or to become conscious of it. That's really all it is. It's a matter of consciousness.
And how did that affect you?
What it's done is it's opened up a whole nother world. I mean, the world of dreams for most people is a world of kind of a random occurrence. You know, you go to sleep, you're kind of at the whim of your day, if you will. You know, what type of dream you might have, where you might go with it. But eventually, for me, this became a tool for me to see not only the dreaming world, or the world of the unknown, or the world of the spirit, but also to reverse that and bring that experience back into my waking consciousness. That enables me to, you know, sense consciously what's going on around me, what type of fears are around me, what type of joys. It's just opened both doors. The door goes both ways now.
Would you say that it's one of the things that humans do is, you know, I was talking at the opening, we separate things, and actually there's no separation, so
Right.
just one of the things that we don't really need to do. It's just, we stay in the familiar range?
Yes. Yes, we tend to break things down, especially physical and spiritual, but there is no difference. The physical body, your physical body, my physical body, this is the spirit made flesh. This is our creation. And we can manipulate that creation, or better understand that creation and allow it to flow naturally. Then the world becomes a whole different ball game. We're not at the whim
mercy
of any unseen force or a situation. You know, it's up to us to create as we see fit.
And how does that manifest in your life on a day-to-day basis, would you say?
It manifests in any situation. You know, driving the car, going to the grocery store, it doesn't matter what it is, it's more consciousness of the world, of my position in the world, of my position in relationship to other people in the world, and the creation that we are making. Is this what I would like to do? Is this my deepest desire? If not, then I should be working on correcting that, or opening myself to a greater flow. Yeah.
And so, do you still practice, say, lucid dreaming on a nightly basis? Is that?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a primary focus, but it's not a practice. And if you take a look at that, the idea of practice again is a separation. You know, I would like to practice doing this, as opposed to realizing that it's just a part of who I am. It's already occurring. Every night, people have lucid dreams. Every night, the dreaming body comes out of the physical body, travels, meets other people. It happens already. The problem is that we don't connect the two. As you're saying, there is no oneness between the physical body and the dreaming body. And that's what I am working on in my own life, is merging the two together. Because by merging them together, suddenly it seems like you're lucid dreaming. Suddenly you realize that you're having an out-of-body experience, when all along you've been having them. You just weren't conscious of it.
And you go around giving workshops and helping people bridge heaven and earth in a sense. I mean, you know, because there are a lot of ways to do that. But
I try to remind people that this is your gig. You know, do you like it? Is it everything you want it to be? If it's not, what's keeping you from making it that? What kind of fears do you have? What are your dreams telling you? Because for most people, when they go to sleep at night, they're going to have a type of dream that's more like a regurgitation, if you will. A regurgitation of the daily events, the things that are troubling them, the fears that they haven't resolved or that they haven't approached or dealt with in some way. It's plaguing them constantly. It plagues me
day
too.
and night, right. Right.
You know, if you've got too much going on at work, you don't have enough money, your family situation is full of stress or arguments, you know, take charge of that and say, no, this is not what I'm looking for in my life.
Why do you think it is that people, or it's developed over time, that people make all these separations and create these tremendous gaps in their lives and aren't leading the life they really want to lead?
That's part of a thinking or rational process.
The reason.
Yes.
Reason somewhere came
Yes.
in.
Everybody wants to know why something is. And in some ways that's helpful, but you can again go overboard, you know, to the point of distraction again. You've just found another thing to distract yourself from the real focal point, which is get the fear out of the way. Let the dreaming body come back into the physical body. Because for most people, the dreaming body is...
Why don't you define the dreaming body?
The dreaming body is defined in many ways, in many traditions. It's the soul, etheric body, the astral body, dreaming body, energy body. It's, if you will, if you look at the spirit or the unknown as everything, and we are microcosms, little pieces of that, into a physical manifestation for the purpose of discovering a truth, a way of being that increases a consciousness and an awareness. And we get in the way with that with our distractions, with our fears. They create more thoughts in our minds. They help us engage a thought to the point of distraction, to the point of going too far into the thought process. When all you have to do is disengage from the thought process, because it's not going to go away. It's just, again, a choice. I disengage from this thought. I don't like this thought. I just retreat from it. Come back into the body. Feel what's going on around me. So it's the difference between too much thinking or feeling.
And so what you're saying is that there's an experience a human being can have that's more in harmony. It doesn't deal with the right and wrongs, the good and bads. It's just harmonious to the being in each. But you have to be in each moment to be there with it.
Oh yeah, many books about that too. Power of now. Be here now. Everybody is aware of this. All the traditions are aware of this. It's just the practice of doing it, of being here, of not allowing yourself to be distracted from that, not spinning some tale in your mind, a what if tale. Oh, what if this happens to me? Well, that would be terrible. What if I run out of money? What if I can't see this person again? You know, it's all fear. It's not the reality. The reality is here. There is no what if here. There is just you and another person. The relationship, flowing of energy, the attempt to reconnect the two pieces of the unknown, the two dreaming bodies trying to communicate with each other. What's in the way of that? Perception of some kind. I have a perception of you. Maybe. I'm not sure if I like the perception. You know, see, I create a wall, or I just let it in. I look at you. I look at your dreaming body. That would open me up to other things. People would call it psychic information. You know, the various chakras resonate constantly. Each chakra is telling me, you know, how you are feeling on each level. I can feel it.
Can you see it or feel it, or both?
It's more of a feeling, but the feeling, as I become more quiet, can take on visual qualities as well. I know many times I'll be out in public, focusing on a task that I'm doing in that particular moment, when I'll see a flash of a person's face. I might be shopping, I'm reaching for a can of tuna, and I see Jerry's face on the can of tuna. And
not Tony the tuna.
No, no, no.
Oh, not.
And then I turn around and Jerry walks around the corner. He's in the store. He's here. Wow, just like that. I can pick up on this presence of other people. I can go to...
and you'll see that rather than just know that.
Because there's more, it's more of an impression, but that impression is so strong, it feels like it travels up, flashes. There's like an image in my mind.
And so how, I mean, was this available to you at the very beginning, or as you've been open more and more to it, that becomes more real for you and more concrete and more solid? Yeah,
it becomes more solid. When I was younger, again, I was not focused on these things. I think that they occurred all the time, and there was just no awareness that there was anything out of the ordinary, anything unusual, you know. But I wasn't really conscious of it. It was just happening, and nobody was saying, "Oh, that's weird. You shouldn't be doing that," or, you know, "This is not normal," or anything like that. Now, as an adult, I see entities or ghosts of people who have passed away. If I'm in a house, you know, Court has the same thing. He sees it constantly, probably more than I do.
Who's that?
Court. This is the man that in my book that I'm talking about. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, as you move through that and get more in tune with it, it becomes more real for you. And so each time the impressions get stronger and more present, would you say? Is that?
Yeah, the more that I focus on the things, the impediments, my own fear, my own attachment, you know.
Okay, how would you, so, okay, you're moving through your life. Would you feel a different energetic movement in you when you are afraid, when you are attached? And so if you're there with it, you know, well, oh, here it is.
Well, I'll give you an example that it started occurring when I was really young. I was probably 3 or 4. And the funny thing was that I never thought that this happened to any other person. And when I was in college, I went to see a therapist. I asked him, "What's going on?" And he said, "Oh, it sounds like you're split off." And this is a process, it's a psychological term called dissociation, which is something that happens to a lot of war veterans who experience a lot of trauma.
Trauma just breaks you in half.
They suddenly feel like they cannot relate to anybody or anything, like they're somewhere in the distance. And when I was a young boy, it would always happen in public places, like if we went to the shopping mall on the weekends. And I'd walk into the shopping mall, and I would start to feel a little bit nervous because there were so many people. It was like a lot of energetic input all at once. And after 15, 20 minutes, something like that, I would start to feel like my vision was narrowing. My hearing was compressing, and my hands would get thick. Feet would get thicker, I'd get hot flashes. And suddenly, what I considered to be me, my normal perception, would pop up out of the back of my head, and it would ride somewhere around here, and it felt like I was looking from above my head down at people, down in the, people in the mall. And it was very uncomfortable. I had no idea what was going on. I thought there was something wrong with me.
Right.
And I came to find out after I wrote the book and started a chat group, discussion group, that there were other people who had this experience too. But it was just never talked about. But now having realized that, it's become very important for me because I realized that was an out-of-body experience. It happened when I was awake. The same thing can happen when you're dreaming. You can pop up out and you can be aware of your dreaming body floating around the house, going to talk to other people.
Can you guide it at this point? I mean, direct it that if you want to go talk to another dreaming body, or is it just you're watching it and you're conscious of it?
I am just watching it, conscious of it. I've heard of some people who direct it. I don't know that it works because it works, but it's not. It's still, again, it's you trying to control something. It's trying to manipulate the dreaming body. There was a friend of mine who said that he would say, "Well, is my friend available?" And the answer would come back, no, because they weren't available. There was not a mutual communication at that point. So even though he could try or attempt to control that, he was not successful in it. So it seems to me that the dreaming body has its own agenda. We're always communicating with each other. So it's better just to follow it, see where it leads you.
But I think we have had people on who, actually do activities, do healings with their dreaming body, things like that. So, somehow either that's their spoke on the wheel or that's their gift.
Yeah, I honestly don't doubt that.
Yeah,
this
person who I'm thinking of would certainly not say it unless they were doing it. So actually he's coming on in a couple of more shows. He's been on before, but he's very gifted. But he spent a lot of years, practicing, studying, doing psychic readings, healings. Teaching psychics to be psychic. So, and he was very gifted as a boy also, had a lot of experience. So are there like tools and techniques that you go out with or you make available to people or that you bring forth in the book that will allow people to fear it less, understand it more, come into contact with it, be conscious of out-of-body experiences, lucid dreaming, things like that?
What the book is about is the process that I went through of discovering these abilities and discovering that the best way to have these abilities was to not use a system. And I know that's very difficult for people. A lot of people would like to have the 5-step program to an out-of-body experience, or the 12, or the 3, or whatever they're searching for.
Well, throughout history, there have been different tools to come into the moment, to be here and now.
Right.
When you get there, you realize there was no tool at all. But
exactly.
It's like you make so much effort that you realize there's no effort you can make.
That's right.
But
exactly.
It is, in the duality, it looks like how do you walk the razor's edge? In
the
all
paradox.
Things. Yeah,
exactly.
that's
Yes. Because you have the intention to reconnect to this, to reconnect to your dreaming body. But you also have the intention to disconnect from the things that distract you from it. So it's the process of not doing things, as Castaneda would say, or the process of letting go of what you think is right.
Yeah, how do you break
in.
open? I don't know if you know this guy, Daniel Pinchbeck. He wrote the book Breaking Open the Head. And he did a lot of shamanic type work and out-of-body work and stuff like that. And you know, it's like, how do you break the concepts? How do you empty the backpack of all the ideas and concepts so you can be lighter?
Yes.
So you can float, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah,
because
that's the tricky question.
Because the answer to the paradox is the more that you put into your mind, the less space there is for the information that's coming from your dreaming body. And that's
and
the
you can't be
right
in the
there.
moment, and you feel heavier and heavier.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I like to quote in the book are some of these old ancient texts.
It's always the same story, isn't it? It's interesting. It's always old and always new. So, all right, you know, I think maybe what we'll do is come back and talk more about the book and get into more specifics. But we'll have the second video now, which is No Pride at All. It's written by Jesse Winchester and performed by Guy Monroe. So, No Pride at All, Guy Monroe.
If I know you well, and I think I do, well, along about now, you'll be wondering how you'll be getting through. Are you really so strong as you say you are? Why, you never can tell. Hey, I wish you well. Kid, you're going far. But if ever you're caught in a corner, if ever your pride should lead to a fall, bring it to me. I've got no pride at all. I don't hold a hurt like some people do. I say, what the hey, people get that way, I get that way too. So you run on ahead till you're out of sight. I'll be right behind if you change your mind like I think you might. But if ever you're caught in a corner, if ever your pride should lead to a fall, bring it to me. I've got no pride at all. I don't hold a hurt like some people do. I say, what the hey, people get that way, I get that way too. So you run on ahead till you're out of sight. I'll be right behind if you change your mind like I think you might. But if ever you're caught in a corner, if ever your pride should lead to a fall, bring it to me. I've got no pride at all. Bring it to me. I've got no pride at all. Bring it to me. I've got no pride at all.
Okay, that was beautiful. So we're back on the set with Matt. So what made you call it the face of power? I mean, you know, it's interesting because it could have been the face of love, it could have been the face of consciousness. How did you experience it that it was the face of power?
For me, it was an awakening of power. And a lot of people that I've come across have had trouble with that term, the face of power.
Yeah, I didn't have trouble with it, but I was just curious to me of all the ways it could have been described.
Right, and what was important for me in my journey with this work was that was learning that the power is not power over someone or something. It's not a manipulative power. It's the power of the self, the power of self-creation, the power of creative aggression, if you will, in the world, the power to stand up and take charge of my life, become responsible, energetically mature.
Have a discernment, have clarity.
Yes, because people, as they grow up, the physical body matures. It's pretty straightforward. The dreaming body and its chakras would mature as well if we would leave them alone. But we have our belief systems that impede the flow of energy through the chakras, the natural development. Somebody like myself might have a religious upbringing that frowns upon sexuality or the power of sexuality, and that will inhibit the flow of energy and the development of the second chakra. So what you wind up with, or what I wound up with, was certain relationships where I was trying to discover that power, but at the same time behaving in an immature fashion energetically. And so part of my discovery was that this sexuality isn't just an aspect of myself. Where does it belong in the order of things?
Right, and that order bounces around, because in every moment there's like a different, you know, requirement, a different harmony.
Exactly. I mean, the heart chakra has been a primary focus of a lot of the metaphysical and New Age generation. But you can have too much of a focus as well as not enough, or a constriction. If you focus all your energy on the heart chakra and don't develop the other chakras in balance, you're going to wind up
top heavy.
Yeah, being taken advantage of.
Right, have no discernment whatsoever.
It could be a bleeding heart, you know.
Right.
Somebody would just take you for everything you're worth and then resent you. They would resent you because they can walk on you. They can
you've
step
ruined
all over
their,
you.
right.
You know,
well, it's not harmonious. When you have disharmony, there's going to be resentment and bad feelings and all over the place.
Right. So the power is the development of each chakra, conscious awareness of each one, the blending of the entire being, and then the movement of that out into the world with others, and then coming back into the self.
Would you say the more one experiences what I would call like pure consciousness through whatever means they use, there have been many means used, meditations, masters, you know, dreaming, things like that, that the more you experience that has a harmonizing effect? I mean, if you're really experiencing it, then that's going to harmonize, because doesn't have a focus. That's like love in motion, that's power in motion. That's
Yeah, so long as it's not being misinterpreted, or you're not putting some kind of shade or color onto it. You know, we can move in the world and have all kinds of experiences, but do we have judgments about those experiences? You know,
give an example of something like that.
Well, you might be at work one day and somebody is saying something that you don't like, and you have an impulse to say something about that, but you clamp down on that because maybe you think that it's a rude comment. And I'm not talking about something that's over the top here. I'm just talking about something that helps the relationship between two people, because in any relationship, you are reflecting each other. to each other. You are a reflection for me to look at and see how I am coming out. You know, how is my dreaming body manifesting through my physical body out into the world? And if I'm not honest with you or you're not honest with me, then I don't get a clear reflection. So if you don't say something to me that maybe you felt like saying, because you had the impulse to say it, I'm not getting anything from you. You know, in a way, you're withholding information from me.
Right.
I'm not saying that it's your responsibility to help me. It's just a part of the flow of life.
So, I mean, if this impulse comes up, would you say that it's always appropriate to respond to it? Or respond to it in a certain way?
Yes. What can happen, though, is the more that you repress that energy, you know, you don't say anything, you decide.
Can you look at that particular desire to make some comment or other and look at it with a certain level of discernment and decide that that's not the appropriate time and space to do that?
You can.
However, what's the however? I know you got a however coming.
The thing to be careful of is that if you have repressed too many spontaneous actions, you might have a bitter buildup inside of you. Then your response might be bitter. It might not be appropriate. The initial response would have been appropriate, but because you've repressed it for so long, the energies become stagnant. And so when you finally blurt something out, like many people do in a relationship, you know, their partner is constantly bothering them. I really hate it when they do that, you know, but you don't say anything until finally one day you explode. You have an argument. It's very dramatic. But if you had paid attention to it earlier and addressed it in the more peaceful fashion that it probably came up as from the first place.
It was smaller at the beginning before it got layered.
That's right. Then you would have a more open relationship. It's a more affectionate relationship, less volatile, less dramatic. It's just more spontaneous.
Is it always, would you say that the person who you're dealing with in this relationship is always able to hear it? Is it like in that time in human space, is it always appropriate to say it at that time and space or to manifest it?
That's the great thing about following the impulse, is that your dreaming body knows that this is the appropriate time and place.
Okay, so is the impulse always pure then? Is the impulse always, you're assuming for now that the impulse is always coming from the dreaming body, but people have impulses all the time that's coming from God knows fucking where.
Well, that's why I qualified it by saying that if you've repressed this for a long time.
So you mean a pure impulse?
Yes.
And how many people have pure impulses on a general basis? Are we talking about a very few bunch of...
Let's hope there are more.
More coming.
Yeah. I mean, this is why people have an ebb and flow relationship with themselves. There's a time to be inside of yourself, there's a time to be outside. When you're inside of yourself, you're evaluating, you're looking at past experience. You're recapitulating, if you will, your past experience. Could I have done that better? Did I not follow the impulse? Maybe when I followed the impulse, there was stagnant energy, and it came out very bitter and volatile. So yes, I can see by looking at that experience that it was because I had not followed my original impulse, when it was peaceful, when it was easier. It was more affectionate. It was coming from a place of affection and not anger.
Well, the question would be, I mean, you're dealing with another energetic force. So even though it might have been more appropriate for you on some level to say it, say it in a certain way, it might not have been appropriate in the context of the whole surroundings, even if it was pure. But you're saying if we're defining purity as the consciousness moving, then the consciousness moving would know that that's appropriate.
Yes.
And so the only thing that would block it is your concept about it being the wrong time or the wrong space, or some fear you have of this could make me lose this person or lose this relationship.
See, a lot of that, is your fear of maybe that person thinking bad thoughts about you, not liking you as much, because we all want to be liked. So that is one of the biggest fears that we have. Well, if I say that, I might upset that person. Well, what you're really saying is the person might not like me anymore.
Could it be that that sometimes in that same vein that it just would, like Don Juan talked about having time for a gesture, and sometimes the time and space element, well, you see, you're defining it as it's appropriate. So if it comes out of that pure, I guess if it comes out of that pure space, then it's perfect at the moment.
Well,
and then the question is to recognize harmony and disharmony within yourself when that pure space comes, when that impulse comes up.
We do our homework so that we can go out in public, if you will, and relate to people appropriately, to be an appropriate mirror to somebody else.
So we have to be as clean as possible, in essence.
Well, what else would you do?
What else would, yeah, that would be the plan.
Yeah, because your dreaming body can say, hey, look, his chakra could receive this information right now. You can make it conscious for this person if you speak it right now in this manner. And the most difficult thing is to not hesitate. You see, because you're judging your dreaming body. Your dreaming body is ready to go. It's like, let's go do it. And you're like, whoa, put down the clamps. Evaluate, judge, is this appropriate? It must be.
Right. Well, it's only by defining it is that purity of and someone knowing the purity within themselves and being so pure that in essence there wouldn't be resistance.
Right, because little things like this are what lead to the bigger things, Can you let go in a bigger situation and follow the impulse, follow the dreaming body? It's trying to show each and every person in here the way to self-fulfillment, the way to enlightenment, the way to conscious realization of all the abilities of the dreaming body, the lucid dreaming, the astral projection, remote viewing, everything. The psychic experience, the intuition, it's already there. It's already operating. The only thing in the way is the judgments, the perception, the fear.
The concepts.
Yeah, the thoughts.
So once, let's say people assume that that's an accurate, the last 2 or 3 sentences you said, that's an accurate assessment. So how do they unwind? They view, some of the people out in the studio audience view themselves as a certain religion. They believe in that. A certain family, a certain structure, a certain, an American or a French person or, whatever. How do they give, although they might still be those things, how do they give less weight to it? How do they not have that concept in proceeding in this next breath for them?
It begins with the quiet little voice inside of you that's speaking to you.
And how if you're involved in busyness, how can you begin to hear it?
Now that goes all the way back to what we were talking about in the beginning of the show. Is
we're making a full circle. That's what it is.
Is clearing out enough space for the information from the dreaming body. We have the dreaming body trying to well up within our physicality, trying to create in the physical world. And we need to give it the room to do that, the space to do that. If we have too many beliefs, too many thoughts, and we're attached to too many things, too many fears, we're crowding out that space.
How do we open up the top of our head and get it out? I mean, we believe in it, we're afraid. How do we become this much less afraid, this much less attached, this much, people want to know, the millions of people watching live and throughout the world who are going to see it as time. I'm afraid it is. So.
It's a process. You have to begin immediately with the smallest thing. You just have to start listening We're so busy talking, so busy feeding ourselves with information that we're not listening to anything. Everything is already full. It's overflowing.
We know everything.
That's
Everything's reasonable.
And
Everything fits.
We constantly go out and look for, more patterns to ascribe to. We go on the internet to look for more information to fill ourselves up with. What is meditation? Meditation is listening. To what? To what's inside of us.
Yeah, shutting the external.
Yeah, you don't even have to shut it off. You just have to tune in and listen. I mean, the most difficult thing about anybody trying to meditate is if they are trying to force themselves to be quiet. If the noise is within you, then you need to simplify your life. You need to stop doing so many things. Stop being so involved in everything. Because you don't need to be involved in everything or think about everything.
There are a few things you could leave out.
There's a couple. A lot of people, they might like gardening or yard work. So go out in your yard or your garden and just listen. To me, meditation is a way of life. It's not something that I practice. It's something that I am.
Right.
And so that follows me wherever I go because I just want to listen. When I'm eating my food, I don't want to talk. Because I'm enjoying.
Do you want to watch television?
Sometimes I watch television,
Right.
but I don't do anything else when I'm watching television. I notice that,
You don't eat and watch television.
Sometimes I do.
I was just checking. You'd be one of the few Westerners who don't, but people don't, some don't.
No. It just depends.
No,
but,
I understand.
To simplify your life, to remove things, to pay attention to each thing that you're doing.
To be where you are. And
Yeah.
Because if you're where you are, then that's where the life is. It's not in the past, it's not in the future.
Yes.
It's not whether you're married, not married, this religion or that religion. Mm-hmm. It's in this moment, and in that moment, you're nothing and everything.
Exactly. And it's frightening to a lot of people. To
What
fill ourselves up with distraction so as not to face the fear. Because there's a lot of fear. There is a lot of fear.
And the fear is of the unknown, in a sense.
Actually, the fear is of losing the known.
Losing the known.
Yes.
But we wouldn't be afraid of losing the known if we weren't afraid of the unknown. But it's tricky. I mean,
the unknown is who you are. Though.
Right, I understand.
You see, I am the unknown.
Well, that's
I come
the
from
illusion.
The right.
This experiment has set it down and flipped it.
Yes.
So
Yes, that's part of the paradox.
Yeah, that's part of
Yes.
it. I call it the experiment. How interesting.
Let go of what you know. That's the trick. That's
Well,
the
let
most
go of
difficult.
reason. I mean, what I always say is we're hurtling through space on a ball. Like, nothing is reasonable. The whole experiment, the whole thing is unreasonable. So why try to pick a part out and say this is going to be reasonable?
Sure.
I mean, it's lunacy.
That's right.
In essence, it's lunacy. All right, so I guess, here we go again. The show's over. Live, dead, whatever we got. We've run it down. So,
So quick.
it's an amazing thing. And I think really a lot was said tonight. A lot of experience was available. And again, how can we, come to that place of openness, of opening our heads, breaking up our heads, opening our hearts. How can we do that? How can we bring that experience into our moments and make our lives real? And really, again and again, in some which way, in some shape, in some form, that's what we want, is to be open, to be in that experience of power, of consciousness, of love, of truth, of God, however you describe it, but that experience, that understanding, that knowing that we want and we can have. So if you want any information about Matt, call me, Alan, 805-687-2053. Good night, we love you. God bless you.